Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Gloria. I am a customer success partner here at GetCoin, and I'm here with Isabel. Isabel is a partner at Celo, and she is going to be talking about creating a decentralized social apps. And I just wanted to let you know that go ahead and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, but the better place to drop them is actually in the Q&A. And if you drop them in the Q&A, we can upvote them, we can all can see them, and that's really helpful during our discussion, so feel free to do that. This discussion is going to be recorded, and so you can always see the replay on the GetCoin YouTube channel, and it has all of the workshops, this workshops and all the previous workshops from the Make It Mobile Hackathon. So if you need to rewatch this for any reason, just feel free to head over to there. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Isabel, and she will talk you through creating decentralized socials.
Thanks, Gloria. Yeah, I'm just gonna share my slides first. Cool, yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Isabel. I have been building on the Celo network for around 2.5 years now. And I work on the Valora team, so building our mobile app. Before Celo, I had previously worked for like a loyalty points company, like exploring blockchain for them, so I have a bit of experience in this space. So yeah, I'm excited today to talk about decentralized social apps. So just a little bit of an agenda of what we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna first look at Celo's mission and how it informs our decisions when building on Valora, and then just take a look behind the scenes at some of the features of Valora and what it takes technically to make them work. So these features are how we handle identity, how we think about user experience, taking a specific deeper look at profile pictures and names, and then finally how profile pictures are implemented using private off-chain data. All right, so Celo's mission. If you're familiar with like the Celo ecosystem, you've probably seen this like everywhere, but our mission is to build a finance system that creates the conditions for prosperity for everyone. And this ultimately provides the direction for all the decisions that we make and the direction that we want to go in. And this mission is really talking about financial inclusion. One of the really early promises in like the big blockchain Bitcoin space was to bring the unbanked banked. So yeah, but if we look around today, this vision of financial inclusion has not really been realized yet. And one of the big reasons for this is the experience of the end user. So a critical part of making decentralized finance accessible to everyone is how that end user really experiences crypto. And for the average user, they're really only going to care about like making sure that the financial tools that they're using are fast, affordable, safe, secure, and comprehensible to them. And then so for Celo network, the end user experience has really been central to the design of the network and the tools that we're also developing at Celo. Another huge barrier to entry to crypto is hardware access. So a lot of tools right now are really designed for desktop, which is for a lot of people in the world, like not really something that they have access to. And then, so Celo's philosophy has always been that the Celo network should be accessible to anyone that has a mobile phone, which is actually like a much larger proportion of the population. That's why if we take a look at the Celo protocol, from the very beginning, it was designed with, from the lowest blockchain layer, it was designed with the end user in mind. None of the chains that were existing were really able to provide the features to reach the goal of financial inclusion. And building everything with mobile first in mind means that design choices and trade-offs were and are being made to make sure that users can access the power of blockchain without the price and the complexity. So all this talk about mobile, you gotta have a mobile app. So when we look at Valora, which is our app on the Celo blockchain, we've designed Valora to be really easy to use. A lot of times we like to refer to it as like Venmo on a blockchain. And for the majority of like the average user, this is how they're going to be interacting with the network. So as much as possible, we've tried to abstract away sort of a lot of the underlying complexity of crypto and blockchain so that it feels just like any other mobile payments app. And we've also tried to design it while keeping in mind like what are a lot of the expectations people have when interacting with payments and like digital apps, and what are some like UX patterns that they're really familiar with. So looking at identity in Valora. So Valora is a non-custodial app, which means that users have control of their accounts, their account keys, as well as like recovering their account. A lot of people in crypto like to say that like if you don't hold the keys to your coins, then are the coins really yours? So yeah, when you think about financial inclusion, we really want to empower people like to have control over their own finances. So that's been really important to us. And so let's take a look at how exactly we do that. So when in Valora, key management is stored locally on the mobile phone. So on your phone, on the blockchain layer, we use a Geth key store, which holds all of the private keys to your accounts. And then we use a React Native Geth bridge, which allows us to access that key store from the app, which uses React Native. And then in React Native, then there is a Geth wallet that is able to manage like the transactions and all of the functions that are called on the blockchain layer. And what specifically are all of these keys that we are managing? So every Valora user has 3 important keys that we're going to talk about today. So the high level like account address is we call the meta transaction wallet. And so this is just a smart contract, and it manages all of your other keys, as well as managing other functions such as like feeless attestations and stuff. But in terms of like the network, like this account address is the one that we use to identify you as like a person. And then the meta transaction wallet manages the externally owned account. The externally owned account is kind of like the traditional, like what you think of when you think of a blockchain wallet. So it has a public-private key pair, and this is really what you use for sending and receiving transactions. So this is basically your wallet address. And then for every wallet address that you have, we also generate a data encryption key, which is used for encrypting data, and this is for encrypting things such as like transaction comments or like off-chain data. So like not just like data that's not just like sending and receiving transactions. And so like this is sort of like a lot of like the technical aspects that we've implemented in Valora to make, because we feel like this is really important for making like the end user experience good. But in terms of non-technical aspects, we really believe that like the experience should also feel really smooth and beautiful for the user. Like it should feel like, I don't know, it's like really catered for anyone who's using the app. And so when we think of like good user experience, especially for traditional apps, one of the first things that like most people will implement is like profile pictures and names, right? Like you want to be able to know like who am I interacting with and make it personalized and feel like you can have an idea of like what the other person looks like. And so this is also like really important for crypto, especially because a lot of crypto applications right now kind of just rely on account addresses, because for crypto natives, like that makes the most sense. But you can see that like with account addresses or even with phone numbers, it's like really hard to see like who you're like sending and receiving transactions from, and it definitely like doesn't feel as personal as the traditional sort of using names and photos. But like with photos and names, on traditional apps, like it's really easy to implement, right? When you think of when profile photos and names, like you just like spin up a server, and it's like not really something you would consider complex, but on the blockchain, there are a lot more things to consider. So we want to make sure that we still implement this feature in a way that is accessible with all of the things we mentioned before. It's fast, affordable, safe, secure, comprehensible. Now, why is this feature so difficult to implement on the blockchain? It might be sort of like counterintuitive when you think of just like profile pictures and names, but when you think about the blockchain, it's really expensive to send and store data. So on Celo, the cost of storing data, I think, is around 16 Wei per byte. And then when you think about the size of like a standard profile picture, that's many bytes. And then also just profile data, like it's not really necessary for sending a transaction. And blockchains, we like to keep blockchains like as light as possible like for making consensus fast. So yeah, it can be hard to like justify attaching profile data to a transaction. And so like a lot of the times when we think about these sort of features, like right now, it can seem like there's a lot of technical challenges, but we're really trying to get to a point where these features are seen as commonplace and the complexity has been abstracted away. So if you think about like a computer, things such as like navigating files or like accessing the internet is like really easy now, but there's actually a lot of behind the scenes engineering that has been developed over the years to like make that user experience really straightforward. And so this is sort of what we're trying to achieve with the blockchain as well. Like eventually, hopefully, we don't need to think about how all of this is implemented. And so, yeah, so this is where it brings us to off-chain storage. So ultimately, profile data is stored off-chain. And why do we do this? So as we mentioned before, storage on the blockchain is really expensive. On Ethereum, storing a single gigabyte of data can be upwards of like 76,000 US dollars. We all know that gas prices are really expensive on Ethereum. And so this creates a huge barrier to entry. Like if you want to be able to like do things on the network, right? However, a lot of our target market like is definitely not able to afford that. An example of this is like currently on Celo, you can make transactions with comments, so encrypt comments in your transaction, which can be really useful. But we've seen that when you put really large pieces of data in these encrypted comments, the gas price does go up. Now, Celo gas prices are definitely like a lot lower than Ethereum, but it's still something that we'd like to like keep as low as possible. And then additionally, it's also like it feels like you don't really need to have hard consensus for everything, right? Like a lot of network metadata is only verified by people that actually need to interact with the data. If I want to register like my name and my profile picture, it's really not necessary for it to go through the whole blockchain consensus mechanism. And not everyone in the network is really going to be interested in that. And also like I said before, if we keep transactions as light as possible, this also means that overall transactions can be confirmed faster in the network, which is really important if we want to grow the network, scale it. And then finally, like storage and indexing on blockchain is just really tricky when you're using like really complex and like rich pieces of data, like a lot of traditional Web 2 tools with file systems and relational databases is like way easier to use, especially for developers. And so depending on what kind of like data you're trying to store, a lot of these more traditional systems should be leveraged as much as possible. Now, even on using off-chain storage, we need to consider the issue of privacy, right? So most users will probably not want their personal like information to just be accessible to anyone to read, especially when associated with like transactions on the blockchain. And so we're gonna take a quick look at how we implement private off-chain storage and just like a high-level view of that. So for the situation, we have like your user, let's call her Alice, and then we have the network of validators and nodes that are keeping the network alive, keeping the blockchain protocol running. And then we have other users that would want to interact with Alice. And then on the top left, we have basically like the backend storage for all of this off-chain data, which is like in the cloud. So let's say Alice wants to like associate her account with her name and picture. So what she does is she generates a symmetric key for her information. Using the symmetric key, she encrypts her profile data, and then she also encrypts the symmetric key with her own data encryption key, and she uploads all of these pieces of information to the backend storage. And then she decides, okay, I want to give Bob access to my profile. And then so what she would do is from the network, she would retrieve Bob's data encryption key. And then using Bob's data encryption key, she would encrypt the symmetric key that was used to encrypt the profile data, and then upload this to her account folder in storage. And then Bob, when he wants to access Alice's profile, would then from the network retrieve Alice's data encryption key. And then using that piece of information, he would be able to, well, first download all of the encrypted keys and encrypted payload from storage. And then he would be able to decrypt the symmetric key using his data encryption key, and then using the symmetric key, he would be able to decrypt the payload, which contains Alice's name and picture. And so, yeah, putting all of these pieces together, eventually you can get in the app a really usable contact list that is more similar to sort of traditionally what you would expect when using like Venmo or other payments apps. And yeah, this looks way better than a list of account addresses. So yeah, that kind of is basically what I wanted to talk about today. Some features on Vlora and how they're implemented behind the scenes. If you're interested in other features on the Celo blockchain as well as on Vlora, you should check out our YouTube channel, which has a lot of tech talks, specifically private off-chain data. We have a tech talk that delves much in depth about how the keys work and more detail about like encryption and decryption. And then you can also check out these other links as well as follow us on Twitter. So thanks for listening. And then now, if you have any questions, I would love to answer them.
Yes, perfect. So there's a couple questions in the Q&A chat. This one is coming from Alex. Alex says, do you consider something like App Market integrated inside Vlora? It could tremendously simplify users' interaction with dApps.
Yeah, so we do have Wallet Connect, which is like an interface that we've developed, which makes it really easy for dApps to interact with Vlora. A lot of functioning apps right now already use it. So if you look at like Impact Market and Moolah Market, which are two apps that leverage Vlora for their users to interact with Celo.
Perfect. And this is another one from Alex. Says like how dApps devs could interact with off-chain storage. Is there any API or guidelines?
Right. So off-chain storage, actually, a technical name for off-chain storage is CIP8. It's one of the Celo improvement proposals. So if you look up Celo CIP8, there's like a really comprehensive document about like the ins and outs of how that works. In terms of how you could implement it, I know the DevX team is working on creating better documentation for dApp developers. So that's in the works. But I guess if you can't wait for that, yeah, you can check out CPA, and then you can also check out Codebase in the SDK for like how off-chain storage works.
Perfect. And this one comes from Adrian, and it says, you talk about using blockchain being as easy as in File Explorer, etc. Do you think this will be achieved in my lifetime, my kid's lifetime?
Well, I guess that really depends on how long you expect your lifetime to be. But I think that like in our lifetime, it is possible. Like the blockchain space moves so fast. Every year, there's like new innovations that like I wouldn't expect that make blockchain like easier and like closer to like average person to use. So I do think it is possible in our lifetime.
I think about that too. Like when I think about how quickly technology has moved in my lifetime, like, you know, I'm a little bit older, but when I was little, like in kindergarten, we had a computer, and it was like the old school, like Apple computer with the screen that was only black and green, and like it was totally like difficult to use. And then like now I walk around with a phone that's, you know, the same, like, you know, like it's just like crazy to think about how quickly technology really moves. And so even the things that don't seem like that it could possibly be even fathomable in like our lifetime, you know, years is a lot of time within technology, and it's a really short amount of time within someone's lifespan. So not that I'm saying like, yes, in 10 years we'll be able to do that, but I'm just saying like technology moves way faster than we do. Innovation as a whole moves a lot faster than weeks. So hopefully it will be in our lifetime.
Yeah, totally. And especially I think now that more and more people are getting interested in blockchain, and a lot of like companies are like starting to look at it, a lot more like work and people will be put into, yeah, like finding solutions for blockchain.
Yeah, perfect. Let's see if there's any other questions that you all have. If you all have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A. And while we do that, Isabel, I was wondering, could you drop the link to I can find the Discord channel, but you had some resources that you just mentioned. Do you mind dropping those links in the chat as well?
Sure, yeah. I can go back to that page.
Beautiful. There you go, the docs.celo.org.
And yeah, so chat.celo.org will take you to Discord as well.
Perfect. Beautiful. So I don't see any more questions just now in the chat, and I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. So I think we're all set there. Yeah, so thank you so much, Isabel, for walking us through this topic. I think it's really important. You know, I think as things become more and more decentralized, we've seen like the impact of social apps lately that weren't decentralized into. I think like as things continue to grow, it's going to be extremely important discussions to be having. With that being said, again, if you need to come back to this recording, it is on our YouTube channel, so you can feel free to take a look there. And Isabel, I want to thank you for your time. And where can we connect with you if we do have more questions for you? What's the best way to get in contact?
So you can find me on the Celo Discord, and you can also email me at isabel@clabs.co.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for your discussion today. We really appreciated it. And with that, we'll see you all next time.
Okay, thanks, Gloria.
You're welcome.